Okay, so this video is going over arithmetic with polynomials practice problems. Before we get into this example problem, I want to make sure you have these things on the left-hand side in your notes. So you will, to answer, this question and multiple questions on your mastery test, you're going to need to know what a monomial is, binomial, trinomial is, how to identify what degree a polynomial is, whether it's quadratic, linear, or constant. And you'll need to know this FOIL technique. So if you aren't familiar with any one of these, contact a teacher or ask a teacher for some extra support or what page on a tutorial that you can look at. You definitely need to know all of these three things and have them in your notes. Okay, so let's look at this practice problem. It says simplify the following polynomial expression. And then the next part of it is the polynomial simplifies to an expression that is constant, linear, or quadratic, monomial, binomial, trinomial, with a degree of 0, 1, or 2. So again, you're going to need to know all these things. I rewrote it down here. Oops. I rewrote the problem down here. So let's go ahead and dive into it. So the first thing you want to notice is that there's different operations that need to be done on this expression. So here we're obviously going to use this FOIL technique. There we go. Get rid of that. We're going to use the FOIL technique here. Here we can see that there's a negative right on the outside of a parenthesis, so we'll need to distribute that negative. If you didn't already know that, definitely take note of this. If there's, ever a negative number or just a negative on the right on the outside of a parenthesis on the left-hand side, you're going to need to distribute that negative. So let's get started. Okay, so this first term can just drop down. There's no negative right here on the left-hand side. There's not a negative right here, so there's nothing we need to do. All the terms stay the same. So this is just 3x squared minus x minus 7. Here we do have to distribute this negative, like I said. So if it's easier for you to visualize it, go ahead and put the 1 right there, because what you're going to do is you're going to multiply this negative 1 by each one of these terms. You're going to distribute that negative 1 to each one of those terms on the inside. And when you multiply by negative 1, all you're doing is you're changing the signs. So that's all you're doing. Since this is a positive 5x squared, this is now going to become a negative 5x squared, because negative 1 times 5 is negative 5. Since this is a negative 4x, well, we're going to change that to a positive 4x. Since this is a negative 2, we're going to change that to a positive 2. So again, if there's no number out here, there's just a negative sign, you can put a negative, you can put an invisible 1 right there and then multiply your negative 1 out, which essentially just changes the sign of everything on the inside of the parentheses. All right, moving on. This one we're going to use FOIL. So we're going to take our first terms and multiply them. So this is x times x, which is just x squared, and x times 2, which is 2x. And then we're going to take our inner terms, 3 times x, which is just 3x, and 3 times 2, which is just 6. Okay, so if you're struggling with this part, this FOIL, if you haven't seen it, you don't remember it, stop here, contact a teacher, ask them for a video, ask them for some practice problems. You want to get really good at this FOIL method. You're going to see it over and over in your math classes and in the rest of this class. So definitely get familiar with this technique and how to use it. So okay, so from here, so we simplified everything from this line. Now what we're going to do is we're going to combine like terms. Now again, you should be familiar with this this phrase, combine like terms. You should be very familiar with this phrase. So what this means is that we're going to combine everything that has the same variable and the same degree. So that's where those notes on the left-hand side come in. So obviously everything's an x, so that's easy. But they also have to be the same degree. So I'm going to circle everything with a degree 2. which over here we can see that, where is it? Degree 2 is where you have like an x squared, right? So we have our 3x squared. We have our negative 5. And notice I'm circling the sign in front of it. This term takes on the sign that's in front of it. So this is not just a 5x squared. This is a negative 5x squared. This is a positive x squared. And I don't see any more x squared. So this has the same variable, which is x, and it has the same degree, which is 2. So these can all be combined, or they can all be added. You cannot add terms that do not have the same variable or degree. So for example, I couldn't add x squared and x. These two cannot combine because they have a different degree than one another. Okay, let's move on. I'll use green. All right, so now I'm going to combine everything that has a degree of 1. So this is, again, I'm circling the sign in front. This is a negative x. This is a positive 4x, positive 2x, and a positive 3x. And there's no more x's. Okay, so all of these can be added because they are like terms. Negative x plus 4x plus 2x. I'm getting a little sloppy here, sorry. 2x plus 3x. All right. And lastly, we're going to combine all of our constants, our regular numbers. So we have a see, I'm circling the negative in front, negative 7x, a positive 2, and a positive 6. Negative 7 plus 2 plus 6. Okay, lots of colors going on here. All right, so when we combine our like terms, we're just adding from left to right. So this is, you can use a calculator here if you're not, too great with arithmetic, or if you just want to check yourself. So this is negative 3. So all you're going to do is you're going to add the coefficients. So this is like a negative, this is like an invisible 1 right here. Okay, so we have 3 minus 5 plus 1. And sometimes it's good just to do them 2 at a time. So this is 3 minus 5. Well, that's negative 2. Negative 2 plus 1. Well, that's negative 1. Right? Sometimes doing them 2 at a time is easier. So this becomes negative x squared. All right, so now let's combine these. And again, if you want to do them 2 at a time from left to right. So this is, here's an invisible 1. All right, so we have negative 1 plus 4. Well, that's just 3. And then we have 3 plus 2. Well, that's just 5. And then we have 5 plus 3. Well, that's 8. Come on. There we go. So plus 8x. And you can always go back and check yourself. Arithmetic is, the one thing that, you can mess up easily. So let's see, negative 1 plus 4, that's 3. 3 plus 2 is 5. 5 plus 3 is 8. Okay, so I think I'm good there. All right, lastly, we're going to add all the constants. So negative 7 plus 2, well, that's negative 5. Negative 5 plus 6, well, that's positive 1. Now let's try it again. So negative 7 plus 2, well, that's just 5, negative 5, right? Negative 5 plus 6, I'm dropping down the 6, well, that's positive 1. Yeah, I think I'm good. Okay. All right, so now we have this simplified polynomial, negative x squared plus 8x plus 1. Woohoo! All right, but we're not done. It wants to know, is it constant, linear, or quadratic? Well, we can see a quadratic has a degree of 2, which is what we have. So this is quadratic. All right, is it a monomial, binomial, or trinomial? Well, if we look at our little chart, we have 3 terms, right? So that is a trinomial. And lastly, we've already established that it has a degree of 2. How do we know? Well, it has an x squared. If you have an x squared, it is a degree of 2. And how many terms? 1, 2, 3. 3 terms equals trinomial. Okay.